Hey guys, my guest tonight, Brit Elders, is going to be talking about the Billy Meier UFO case. We'll be right back. Grab your popcorn and snacks. Find a comfy spot, take a seat or lie down, and let me transport you to a place of fantasy, ghost stories, ancient legends, odd creatures, alien encounters, and other magical topics. You may even decide to join the conversation. From faraway lands to your own backyard, with a small dash of pixie dust, turn out the lights and open your minds. The journey is about to begin. Good evening, everybody. Happy Monday. 4 more days to go to the weekend. And you know what? It was a fluke. Last week when it was so hot, I told you guys it was early to be like boiling hot here. It was a fluke. Things are going down again. We're going to be back in the 70s by next Monday. So I kind of knew it was a fluke. It was just a horrible time. Usually I get most of my yard work done before the weather changes, but it didn't do it this time. It was non-cooperative. All right, let me get in here. My name is Charlotte, and I'm going to be your host for the next hour or so. I'm also the owner of the California Haunts Paranormal Investigation Team, and we are based out of Sacramento, California. We're 45 strong up and down the state, so if you think you have a paranormal need, give us a call. You can find us you can find our phone number online. You can also find us online everywhere, Facebook, all the social media places, and there's contact information for us. So check us out there. We also have a meetup, California Haunts Paranormal Investigation Team meetup, and we're always looking for new members over there, and that's where we announce the majority of our events. A lot of it's on Facebook, but the majority of it gets announced over at the meetup. So if you want to join up over there, it would be California Haunts Paranormal Investigation Team. Okay, that being said, if you're watching from Facebook, and a lot of you are, please be free to hit that follow button if you haven't done so already. I would really appreciate it. We're trying to build up our showing on social media, and Facebook is building up. Everything's building up right now. I mean, it's like there's this big ball rolling, and it's kind of cool. Anyway, yeah, and if during the show, if you like and hear what you see, hit me a thumbs up. Show me some love, okay? Don't do these hard things, but show me some love. Hit me a thumbs up. Hit me a happy face. Just click that. Also, you feel free to chat in the chat room, because when you do that, it shows Facebook that we have enthusiastic people watching the shows, and they will in turn distribute us out to more people as well. Okay. Same thing with YouTube. Only over there's 900 videos. 900 videos plus of this show. All different topics. I am a photojournalist, and I like to run different topics. Sometimes I will run paranormal, I will run cryptids, I will run shows like tonight, UFOs, UAPs. I will run, murder cases, you name it, I'll run it. Maybe a health food thing, or the opioid crisis. I will run it. I'm a journalist, that's what I do, and so I don't like to run the same topics like all the time. So that's why I do that. Same thing goes for YouTube. If you're over there and you like what you see, please subscribe. We're nearly at 1,000 over on YouTube, our following. But when you combine everything, RSS, Facebook, and all the other social medias, we have a following of over 15,000 that follow this show, and I think it's incredible. I just figured out the numbers this afternoon, and it blew me over. I almost fell out of my chair. But and that's still growing, and that's because of you guys watching the show and sharing and spreading the word about how good this show really is, how it's overlooked by YouTube. Okay, because that's one thing. YouTube shows us no love. We're overlooked by YouTube. But we're a good show. I'm not just saying that because I'm the host. All right. Friday night, I'm gonna do something different. We're gonna have some fun after the show at 8 p.m. Pacific. We're gonna be doing a watch party of creature features, and every Friday night they feature a movie, and it's kind of like to launch the weekend. So we'll get done with this, we'll grab some popcorn, snacks, and we can watch creature features together. I do have a site to show that from. However, they don't usually announce what they're going to show on Fridays like that until maybe 1 or 2 days before. So it's going to be short notice. So be sure to watch the show and keep a lookout for it. I'll even announce it over on the meetup, when and where this is going to take place. But it should be fun. They're not top-notch horror movies. These are grade B things. I grew up watching creature features, and this has been a revival of it, so I'm really excited. I've been watching them almost every Friday night, so it's fun. So I thought I would have you guys come join me. Okay? All right. Tonight, My guest is Brit Elders, and I think I have talked about the Billy Meier case before on the show, but I've never talked to Brit about it. So she's going to come on and talk to you about Billy Meier. She's going to explain to you what her connection to this case is, because it's a pretty cool connection, and some background on it, so you guys know about this. Because I don't think a lot of my listeners know about this case. So it's an interesting case. Let me bring her in. Let's get the show on the road and enjoy the ride, guys.
Hey, Charlotte, thank you. And congratulations on your numbers. That's great.
Just started to launch December is where I saw the first launch, and then it went down, and now it's coming up, and now they're consistent.
Oh, terrific. Well,
Usually
that's wonderful.
you go through it up, then you go down, then it's up and down, but now it's showing really consistent. I'm really excited.
You
I'm
should
really
be.
stoked for
That's
this thing.
great.
4 years of work, and it's finally starting to show.
Yeah.
Doing this stuff. Tell me
And
about
hard
you.
work.
Yep. Tell me about you.
I, wow, me. I'm a writer, I'm an investigative author.
Mm-hmm.
I am totally into nonfiction, will not do fiction. I play in the thump on its side of life, the reality and often the unseen reality side of life, the things
Mm-hmm.
that, we know are there, but we can't really physically attach to.
Right.
Um, been writing since I was a kid. It's just something that it puts a smile on my face, and I do it every day. I got into UFOs because a friend of ours, a retired Air Force colonel, brought this amazing case to us. And he says, "You got to see these photographs." Well, when he showed them to us, it blew our minds because they were too good to be true. This is back in the mid 70s, and they were crystal clear, disc shaped craft, just perfect UFOs. At the time, my husband and I had a company called Intercept that was electronic countermeasures. So we decided we weren't going to throw our reputation to the wind and get involved with the UFO case. But in 1977, we had to go to Europe on business, and we decided to go to Switzerland to check out this man's claims. It was amazing. We went in expecting to spend one day, figure out how he was hoaxing it, and then head home. We were there 5 days, and he gave us movie footage, photographs, audio recordings of the craft, and metal samples. And we interviewed witnesses from all around the area. So we went home shaking our heads, saying, "Oh my God, this is really something." It's not too good to be true because it had so much physical evidence behind it.
Mm-hmm.
We came back and we got involved in a 7 year investigation on this one case because every time we thought, "Oh, good, we've got an answer," at one of the labs we were working with, 50 more questions would pop up and you end up going off in a new direction.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of me and how I got involved in the case in a very short description.
I find this case interesting because I've looked into it. The evidence is fascinating, but on the other hand, there's a lot of people, and that's just like with anything else. I mean, I'm a ghost hunter, so I can tell you,
Sure.
those debunkers are always out there, no matter what. And I've come to the conclusion that a ghost could slap one in the face, and they'd still say it was something else.
Right.
You know. So how did, when you were talking to him, did he seem really sincere about what he was saying? How did that work?
Absolutely. Yeah, it's quite interesting because when we met Billy, he had just moved into this house that half of it was like a barn and half was like the house. He had
Mm-hmm.
no running water. Um, he was a very earthy farmer. Had
Mm-hmm.
one arm. He lost one arm in a bus accident. Intelligent, I mean, worldly knowledgeable, not educated the way we think of education,
Mm-hmm.
but very intelligent, smart, street savvy, kind, considerate, took time for people. We saw people land at his door at 3 o'clock in the morning and beat on the door telling him, "You owe me. You've got to talk to me." And he was patient enough to give them his time. Really quite an interesting guy. Very, I would say grounded is a good
Mhm.
way. He wasn't running around going, oh, there's UFOs or anything. But if you
Mhm.
had a question to ask, he answered it. He never shied away from answering anything.
Now, what was his first experience to get him this involved?
Yeah, well, the first one actually was when he was a child and he was
Mhm.
with his father and he looked up and he saw this thing. It was during World War II. Saw
Mhm.
this silvery object in the sky. He said, what is that? And his dad just said, oh, it's got to be one of Hitler's airships, and just sort of poo pooed it and went on.
Mhm.
But Billy's experience with the Pleiadians began in 1975 in January, and it continued for a number of years and continues today. He's still in communication with them. The interesting thing about this case was it was, and I think really still is, the only case that has brought about so much evidence. And when
Mhm.
you look at the evidence, let's just take the photographs because that's the thing people like to
Mhm.
pick apart and say, oh, no, they can't be real. Well, we had those photographs at U of A with Dr. Michael Malin in the photogrammetric lab. We
Mhm.
were at JPL with Robert Post, the head of their photo lab. We were at Scripps. We were at with Eric Elias at USGS. The photographs went to all of these places. We didn't analyze them. Lee
Mhm.
and I and Wendell and Tom, our associate, did not have the capabilities of doing that. So we took it to people who knew what they were doing and
Mhm.
had the credentials behind their name. None of them could duplicate it, and none of them could explain it. They didn't necessarily believe in a UFO contact case,
Mhm.
but they said they could not duplicate what Meier had provided. So when you look at that from the standpoint of saying, I don't believe the case,
Mhm.
that's one side. But then I
Mhm.
have to throw out, okay, you're talking about the 70s, the mid 70s. Nobody had personal computers, phones
Mhm.
that took photographs and video.
Mhm.
In the metal sample, there is a rare earth element, thulium, very costly to extract, very rare. How did Meyer know to put that in the metal sample? And how did he use, if he had faked it, which I do not believe he did, how did he use a cold fusion process,
Mhm.
which we could not do on this planet? We had to heat metal to pour it.
Mhm.
This was a cold fusion process that had metal, crystal, and then metal, and it was all very pure. So many things just kept adding up. And every laboratory we went to all around the world, nobody could duplicate what he had.
When you look back on what he told you, as he
Hmm.
got older, okay, because you mentioned him being a kid seeing the first one, as he
Hmm.
got older, were they coming to him? I mean, was he an actual contactee when it came down to
Yes,
it, and they kept coming back?
yes, he's definitely a contactee. Um, his whole thing when he was a kid, he saw them. When he
Mhm.
was in India, he saw a different group of beings. And
Mhm.
then in Switzerland, it was with the Pleiadians, and it is a continuation contact. He is a contactee, yes.
What what did he say about them? What did they look like? Because you
They
get all
look,
these different versions of what these aliens
yeah,
are supposed to look like. Even him, right? Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, they look very much like us. They do have longer earlobes that come right into their jaws.
Mhm.
They have, when he met Samyasa, the first one that he met, she had longish blonde hair. She was in a silvery suit. She had fair, fair skin, almost like
Mhm.
a translucent quality to it, sort of
Mhm.
radiant, and fair eyes. But they look different, just like we look different. So to say they are all Nordic looking, you can't. Some
Mhm.
have darker hair, some have lighter hair, just very much like we do.
Very
But
interesting.
humanoid, not reptilian, not the little grays, humanoid.
Okay. Do you think? I mean, you probably don't know. You didn't go, obviously. Did he think that maybe these aliens were hybrids because they look so human or close to human?
No, they told him that their forefathers are our forefathers. And
Okay.
so they had helped seed this planet, our
Mhm.
planet. And so that's why we have such similar characteristics. Several
Okay,
other groups have too, but they were primary in it.
that makes a lot of sense. So
Yeah.
when he was taken, was it for testing, or were they telling him things that they felt he needed to know?
They were talking to him. It was not
Okay.
about testing. In fact, they tested him, they monitored him, not tested him, monitored him
Mhm.
for 10 years before they began the contacts to make certain that they could keep a frequency balance because they don't like being around humans a lot. They say we have a lot of what they call auric stench, kind of a strange energy, and it throws them off kilter. So they watched him for 10 years before they started the contacts, but they had things to tell him, primary being that we're not the only thinking beings on the planet, and we have to realize that out there in the universe, there's many civilizations. We're not solo in it.
Mhm.
The other thing that they really wanted him to talk about was the fact that they are evolving like we are evolving. So
Mhm.
they're not perfect either, and we're not perfect, but we have to start taking responsibility for the things we do. And that was really important to them that they get across to us that they're not going to solve our problems that we created. That's up to us.
Absolutely fascinating. And like when we talk about these pictures that he got,
Hmm.
um, how was he able to do this? I mean, I know I have an old Minolta camera from the 70s.
Uh-huh.
My dad collected cameras, and they're really nice cameras. So he did do this with an older SLR, I'm assuming.
Yeah, he did it with a 35 millimeter, and he could hold it with one hand and wind the film with his thumb and take the picture with his index finger since he only had the one arm. He had a
That's
camera
right.
that functioned for him. He also took movie footage. And
Mhm.
we have a documentary film coming out the end of this month called UFO Contact from the Pleiades, a documentary film.
Mhm.
And you see him put his movie camera on a tripod with one arm and how he does it, and then how he takes his photographs with the 35 millimeter.
That is amazing. But it's like the human body will adapt. When things like
Absolutely.
that happen. Well, even a dog. I mean, if a dog goes blind in one eye or is
Hmm.
blind, the dog, as long as you don't move the furniture, the dog is fine to run around the house.
That's right.
With no issues. And so humans are the same. They're going to adapt. I just find
Yeah.
that so incredible. So when he was taking pictures of these craft, they had to be like down low for him to get these really cool photos.
They were at all different elevations. We have
Okay.
them um, hovering over a freeway. We have a clip of 8 millimeter footage where
Mhm.
there are actually cars passing on this road, and the craft is up there wobbling above it. And
Mhm.
it's really something to see. So there are various, some were close, some were far away.
Mhm.
It was taken in April of 1976, and it was in the same frame with the Mirage jet fighter.
Nice. Okay.
Yeah, that was taking
Very nice.
passes at it. So that in itself was interesting. Several behind branches of trees. So
Mhm.
in one shot, there's three craft, and one you can see is definitely behind the branch of a tree, but it is some distance from the camera.
Hmm.
Yeah,
And with these visits that he had from them, how long? I know it's like a lot of people lose track of time.
yeah.
During these things. Is that what happened with him, or was he well aware of how long each one of these visits would last?
No, sometimes he would lose track of time. And what
Mhm.
seemed to be maybe, it felt like it was going on for a day or two, it was actually just a couple of hours, or
Okay.
the other way around. Both ways seemed to work. And sometimes when they were sitting there talking, like the first meeting under a tree, he was cognizant of the time that was passing. So
Mhm.
that was different too. So every time seemed to be different.
What I find interesting with this is that a lot of the contactee cases that happen, a lot of people don't remember what was said to them
That's
or
right.
what went on. And why does he think he was so lucky to be the one to come out and spread the word, or if that's what they wanted?
It was what they wanted.
Mhm.
There have been actually several contactees that have come out and said, this is why I was contacted. They wanted me to talk to you.
Mhm.
So that's sort of the same thing with Billy because they did want to provide the physical evidence so that that supported what he was saying based on their conversations.
Hmm. Is that? I mean, it obviously had to be information that they wanted relayed out, right, to the to the world's public. But it's just because you don't get that all the time. I mean, there's
Right,
people that do that are supposed to be emissaries,
right.
but they're few and far between.
Yes,
So
they are.
why do you think he was chosen in particular?
They told him that he carried the same frequency or vibration that they had,
Okay.
and that he had had a past life as a Pleiadian,
Mhm.
so that that energy was equal and they could correspond with him without a problem. And they felt like he could present it because he was just a normal person. They
Mhm.
didn't want to take it to a politician or someone's celebrity
Mhm.
because that wouldn't serve the purpose. It has to be through a normal individual.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. Makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
What type of information did they tell him? I mean, was it stuff about the future? Was it stuff about what's going on now that we're messing up, or was it stuff maybe about the past even? Because obviously they've been coming here for a long time.
Yeah. They talked to him a little bit about different things, like they have an event clock.
Mhm.
If event A happens and event B happens, then event C has to happen. That
Mhm.
type of thing, explaining how they viewed time. They talked to him about a lot about how we need to develop as individuals and as a planet so that we stop the warring, we stop the fighting with each other, we learn to communicate because before long we're going to be in space. We're
Right.
already planning our flights to Mars and beyond. So we need to be prepared for what we run into out there. And we have to be
Mhm.
able to communicate without dragging all the anger and hatred that we've got fomenting on this planet with us.
Mhm.
Yeah, we don't need to put that into space. So that was something that they were really, they wanted us to grow up.
Mhm.
And they do say they are evolving, we are evolving, but we
Right.
have to be more responsible for ourselves.
Absolutely. And what did they see for the future as far as the direction that we were going? I mean, here we've got nuclear weapons, we got all this stuff that where we could destroy ourselves. I mean,
Yeah,
how did they feel about that?
they they're worried about it. They are
Mhm.
very worried about it because their original planet was not in the Pleiades. It was in Lyra star system, in the Lyra
Mhm.
constellation.
Mhm.
They had differing factions like we do now. They created a
Mhm.
war that was very similar to a nuclear war and destroyed their planet. Fortunately for them, they had the capabilities of getting off the planet. We don't have that. They had the capabilities of going to a new system in the Pleiades and
Mhm.
engineering a planet where they could live. We don't have those capabilities. So
Right.
that's why they're pressing very hard that we have to really learn what, to just use a very overused word, love is,
Mhm.
because it's got to come through the heart, not through the head. It's
Mhm.
it's not a word you can attach to everything. It's understanding of creation and what that means, and
Mhm.
understanding that out there are so many different civilizations that we're going to share with and are going to share with us. But we have to basically grow up first before that'll happen.
Absolutely, and that's what always made me wonder too, because everybody's read *Chariots of the Gods*, so
Yeah.
everybody pretty much realizes that these aliens were coming, way
Yes.
back, way back, way back, and that what you just said summed it up. Why were they in more communication with the Egyptians and all these people, showing them how to direct things? Because they were, I'm not going to say uncivilized, but they were not at the educated level that the modern stuff that we are. So
Yeah.
what you said makes a lot of sense. They were just
Yeah.
waiting for one of the Earth societies to be at a point where they could communicate with it.
Mhm. And where it, like they told Billy, they will not interfere with us yet. The
Mhm.
operative word being yet. We
Mhm.
haven't gotten to a point where if we do something here that is going to create a ripple effect throughout the universe,
Mhm.
I think that's when they'd step in. But at
Mhm.
this point, they just want us to mature.
Are there any of them here on Earth currently?
They don't live here because they don't like our vibrations.
That's
but
true.
they
Okay.
do get out and walk among people. Yeah,
Mhm. Mhm.
yeah. So every now and then they will come to Earth and find out what's going on here, but they leave quickly. They don't like being here.
Okay. Because it makes me think about this whole thing with disclosure. My
Yeah,
feeling is that the government, if they ever do it, but the government's giving us just enough to prepare us. There's just enough trickling out. And my thought is, once disclosure does happen, it's going to be your neighbor across the street is going to walk out and say, "Hey, I'm from such a planet." Mask comes off,
probably.
and there it is. It's the dude you have beer with it every weekend watching football. So who knows, right? But
Right.
that's how I felt a long time about disclosure, because it seems like they're babying us along with it.
They're spoon feeding us. Yes.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, and for those of us, and I think there's a whole lot of us out there that are much more curious, we want more.
Mhm.
I mean,
Mhm.
first of all, it's human nature, gimme, gimme, gimme. But
Mhm.
we want more. We want more tangible. We want more information that's accessible to everyone, not just through a hearing or behind a closed door meeting. We
Mhm.
really want to know because we want to learn too.
Mhm.
So it's important for all of us to kind of nudge them along so they'll release a little more than what they have. As far as I can tell, and I've traveled around the world, they're we're backwards in the US. We are
Mhm.
really slow. The rest of the world is already talking about this, talking about
Mhm.
future contacts, things like that, bringing it out to the public openly, and we
Mhm.
need to catch up with the rest of the world.
Absolutely. Absolutely. When you met him, what were you? I mean, because we all do it. Even as a newspaper reporter, you do it. You walk in with certain expectations. When you're going
Yeah.
to meet somebody. So, what expectations did you have going in when you first met him?
Didn't have expectations for him because I knew nothing about him other
Mhm.
than he claimed to be a contactee.
Mhm.
I did have an expectation that we would probably figure out that the case wasn't real. And when
Mhm.
we ended up spending 7 years trying to find out how it could be duplicated, then it was to the point of, okay, there's some validity here, and we need to just put everything out there and let everybody make their decision.
Sorry about that. Wrong button came up. I was trying to.
No, no, that's okay.
Where the heck? Okay. I'm horrible with buttons. Plus, I'm blind, but that's okay. Okay. You know what? I don't know why that's on. So let's pop back over here. I did something in the chat room and turn this thing on. Hide. Hide, hide.
There you
There we
go.
go. Okay. I was zooming in to look at somebody's comment of what happened, and then I hit the wrong darn button. Okay, we're back. Okay. Um, his story really intrigues me in that it's gone on for all these years, and yet again,
Yeah.
like I said, there's these debunkers that are out there, and I mean, I don't see how much more evidence this guy, that he could have, put out to people to show them.
Well, that's exactly it. In fact, the Pleiadians told him, how much more do you need? You've
Mhm.
got movies, you've got film, you've got sounds, you've got metal. What else do you need?
Mhm.
But the bunkers are sort of helpful. I,
Yeah.
I've come to look at this way. In the beginning, they were very frustrating because they wouldn't listen. And no
Mhm.
one ever said, let's go to so and so with the analysis. We did it all ourselves on our own
Mhm.
dime, on our
Mhm.
own time. Nobody ever wanted to see the evidence or anything like that.
Mhm.
Okay, so when they would come out and say, oh, the case is a hoax, it's fake. Oh, all right. Then you start digging deeper into
Right.
your own investigation as to what you're finding. And okay, I've got this, and this. Where can I go with this now? And
Mhm.
you start banging on doors of laboratories and finding out who will look at it. And this is the 70s when UFO was not a topic people talked about.
Right.
It
Right.
was something they avoided,
Mhm.
and no one wanted to have that stigma attached to them. Travis Walton had just come out. He went through hell with a lot of these people. Um, a lot of different things were happening at that time, and it was easier to sit back and just say, oh, I think it's a hoax. And then
Mhm.
everybody buys into that. And it's not fair to the case. It's not fair to the investigation. Definitely wasn't fair to Billy Meier.
Mm-mm. Mm-mm.
because they didn't know anything about him.
That's true. That's true. How did his friends feel about this stuff? Because I mean, you might have friends that are supportive, and then there might be some friends that are like, okay,
Yeah,
stop dipping into the happy juice. So,
he had both. He had both. He had friends that were very, very supportive and had seen things, been present when Billy had gone off to a contact, had
hmm
experienced the light shows in the sky, things like that. Some had taken photographs. And then he had others that they did not want to be attached to it at all, and they would
hmm
rather, sever the friendship than be attached to the subjects of UFOs.
absolutely.
Yeah.
His pictures are so clear.
Yeah.
Did the alien race know that he was taking these photos? Were they aware of it?
They
Because
asked him to. They posed
okay,
their ships for him. Yeah.
nice. I was gonna say because a lot of it, people don't get good photos because it's obvious they don't want the photos of the ships taken because they're zipping everywhere.
Right. No, they told him they were going to allow him to take photographs and movie footage and audio record the craft
Hmm.
and get the metal samples to act as a form of documentation to the contacts.
Hmm. Very interesting to me.
It's a very unique case still
It
and
is a
still
unique case still.
relevant.
It is.
Yeah.
When they came for him to take him,
Uh-huh.
what did they always take him on board the ship, or did they meet him in
No.
his home, or how did it work?
No, what what would happen? Oftentimes, Billy would be sitting in his kitchen and he'd get a cooling sensation on his forehead, and then
Mm-hmm.
he'd hear a voice in his head that would say, "Get on your moped," and it would direct him on the moped where to go. And then he would meet with them in a clearing. He would oftentimes go on board the ship.
Mm-hmm.
There were times my husband and he were up working on Billy's roof on the house, which has got a real steep pitch,
Mm-hmm.
and the ladder was off to Lee's side and Billy was over on the left side. Lee's talking to Billy. He turns around to talk to him, and Billy's gone. He didn't use the ladder to get off the roof. He
Wow.
came back several hours later, walking down the street, and apologized and said, I had a contact. They came and got me. So they just literally kind of like, I don't know, I guess you'd compare it to a Star Trek thing where they beam you up.
Right. Right. Right.
That's what they
Right.
did with Billy. Yeah.
Wow. And the other thing that you brought up was how he would feel something cold on his forehead.
Yes.
When I was reading the Mojave incident,
Hmm.
scariest UFO encounter I've ever in my life. That kept me up. Um, they talk about how after the first encounter, how these aliens were walking through walls and they would feel the temperature go down and all this was happening, and it makes me think of what I do as a ghost hunter
Yeah.
because a lot of the witness reports we get are, oh, the room got really cold.
Hmm.
We could
Or
hear
a
these
cold spot
yeah,
in a
or a cold
specific
spot, yeah,
place.
yeah.
Yeah.
And it starts to make me wonder, especially with some of these EVPs that we get that sound like they're really far away
Right.
or they're
Right.
distorted, and it starts to make me wonder whether it's not an alien being from another dimension that is contacting these people.
That's really interesting, Charlotte, because I know several people and several contactees that have worked with EVP,
Mm-hmm.
just trying to get things to come through, and they've had some really unusual things come through.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I can believe it. I can believe it. I mean, you get the mechanical sounding ones, you
Yeah.
get ones that sound like they're underwater, things like that. And that's
Mm-hmm.
what makes me wonder. Like I said, after reading the Mojave incident and everything that they described happening to them is what people
Yes.
who have paranormal encounters
Uh-huh.
say is going on. So
That's
it's a
fascinating. I hadn't
yeah,
put that correlation together, but you're right.
it's an interesting parallel.
Yeah.
So like your husband was there and he disappears and comes back, and I guess he didn't even realize how long he'd been gone right at that point because
No, he had no idea. It was
okay.
several hours that had passed when Billy came walking back, and it was, oops, sorry, they just
Hmm.
came and got me, and oh, okay, because Lee got down from the roof and questioned everybody. Where's Billy? Where did he go? How did he get off
Hmm.
the roof?
Hmm.
Walked all around the house, no way off the roof other than that ladder,
Hmm.
and Billy certainly didn't go down it.
When Billy got back from these things, would he be really tired?
No,
After being taken.
usually he wasn't tired. Usually he was rather energized, felt good about it, and
Hmm.
he would come back always with a happy smile. He loved being with them. He loved that constant energy that they had. Very,
Hmm.
very comfortable with all of that. No fear involved whatsoever.
Just out of curiosity, how many times do you believe that he was taken?
Oh, through all these years since 1975, I would say probably in the thousands. When we finished the investigation, it was well into the hundreds.
Wow.
Yeah, yeah.
And then there's a lot of reports, coming in from contactees that, or at least some of them anyway, that say that they were allowed to, drive the craft, to look at how the craft was being flown. Did he
Hmm.
talk about anything like that at all?
He didn't get to drive it. He got to see how they operated it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and they gave him some hints, and we worked with various aerospace scientists on this, but
Mm-hmm.
they told him they used something that we would call tachyon as a form of propulsion, and it was geared through thought, and that thought
Okay.
could literally control all things. Um, the interesting thing was they talked about time and space where it ceases to exist.
Mm-hmm.
So they would leave their solar system, and it would take 3.5 hours, and then null time, null space, and enter our solar system or our system, and it would take 3.5 hours to get to Earth, a total of 7 hours. Several of the aerospace scientists we worked with had worked it out. If you hit a null space, period, no
Mm-hmm.
time, null space, you could do it in 7.5 hours, get from the Pleiades to Earth. So they had the same thought process going as the Pleiadians have actually managed to achieve.
Hmm. And what
Yeah.
kind of person? What kind of person was Billy? Was he a jokester or just a
No,
normal average guy
very,
going through life?
uh, I would say a farmer going through life. He liked to have fun.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
He would sit up at night. We would sit around the kitchen table drinking coffee kirsch and talking, and he would tell stories, and he showed us one night he was sitting there talking, and he had a 2 franc piece, and
Mm-hmm.
it's like a half dollar, only thicker.
Mm-hmm.
And he just sat and bent it in half, and he says, this is using your mind. That's what your mind can do. And saw him melt spoons. He had this beautiful little demi-tasse cup that he drank coffee out of,
Mm-hmm.
and he was sitting there stirring it, and the spoon is melting. It was just that when he got mad, that channeled right into that spoon. But he never got mad where he yelled or
Mm-hmm.
anything else. He'd pull back and think about it and then come talk. And that was always interesting to me. That his reaction was to think about it, then
Mm-hmm.
discuss it. Yeah.
Very interesting.
So he
And when
wasn't
he
a prankster though. No.
Okay, okay. And when he would go aboard, did he see other contactees?
No, he didn't.
Okay.
He had this set of contacts,
Mhm.
Samyasa, Quetzal, and Ptah, and now it's grown into others. But that was
Mhm.
his original set of contacts. They were his. He was theirs. Yeah.
Okay.
I
Okay.
did talk to him not too long ago, though, because there were some people that were claiming to have had contact in South America.
Mhm.
And he told me at that point that some other group of Pleiadians had contacts in the Americas. That's all I know. Don't know if it's north
Mhm.
or south. But there
Mhm.
was another group there too before Samyasa and Ptah came in.
Which brings me back to this other question. What about Roswell? Let's talk
Wow.
about Roswell a little bit. Was he able to ask them? I mean, other the craft or whatever happened at Roswell related to these Pleiadians
It
visiting
Yeah, it was not related to the Palladians at
the
all.
Pleiadians? Okay.
Um, I this is going to sound really strange. We never talked to Billy about Roswell. We were too
Mhm.
busy talking to him about his case.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah. So I will ask. How's that?
Because to me, as a journalist, if they take me, I'm gonna be first thing I'm gonna be like is, so was it you guys at Roswell or was it not you guys at Roswell?
Well, we already had the physical evidence, so I didn't want to jump ship and go to a different case. I was involved in what was happening with what we had. Yeah.
Did he have any marks like when they would take him? Because I know there's reports, like how to tell. Is these things on the internet? How to tell if you've been abducted? You wake up in the morning, you've got bruises you can't explain. You've
Yeah, or
got
three
little
dots. Yeah,
three
that's the
dots.
big
Yeah.
one.
Did he have anything like that going on with his body after these abductions?
No, because they weren't abductions. He was conscious the whole
Okay.
time he was with
Okay.
them.
Okay.
Yeah, but there are a lot of abductions that do go through everything from the three dots to the bruising to
Mhm.
implants. Yeah,
Mhm.
and those are kind of they're not the beings that I want to be involved with. Yeah,
No. 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 Especially the ones that have holograms. So
yeah.
essentially they're lying to you what they look like in the first place. So that would be a big turnoff for me. You know
Well,
what
I
got
think.
me? And it was
Oh, go
probably
ahead.
Hollywood, but what got me was the pregnancy test
Yeah,
and the Billy and Barney Hill story. That needle is
yeah,
like, I'm like, nope,
yeah.
no.
But I think one of the things we're facing, and
Hmm.
we're going to face more and more, is what AI does and how it interferes with our knowledge base, both in the field that you're very involved with
Right,
and in the field I'm involved with. I think
right.
AI is going to screw things up a lot.
That is something I had a conversation with somebody on Instagram about the other day because they were showing these AI. I forget what the photos were,
Hmm.
and I made the comment. I said, they're going to have to. The government's going to have to step in with this stuff
Yeah.
because people can be misled too quickly. And this guy goes, well, you won't have to worry about it to be afraid of it. I'm not afraid of it. I'm just saying, journalists, photojournalists, when they produce a photo where they've taken something out or they've added something in, you have to caption it as a photo illustration
Right.
so you don't deceive people. And
Right.
my feeling is that somebody's going to have to step up and fight with this whole AI thing and say, okay, we're going to have to put something under each photo saying, automated illustration.
I like that. I think that's brilliant. We've got to have people standing up to that. Yes.
Because it's too many people will be deceived. I can see it
Yeah.
online every day. These AI photos and people falling for them.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's getting so good that they could make it appear that a craft just landed on the White House
Yes,
lawn and a ghost got
yes,
out, you know? I mean,
yes,
yeah.
absolutely. Yeah, there's got to be some kind of control coming up for AI
Mhm.
photos. And
Definitely.
they can say what they want about freedom of art, but I mean, if they do it with journalists, there's no
It
reason why
has
they
to be
can't do it with that.
identified.
It has to be identified
Yeah,
what it
absolutely.
is.
Has to be identified. Otherwise, it's fraud.
Right. I agree 100%. That's my big argument when I'm online with people.
Yeah.
So I have more fights now. I get more fights over AI. It used to be other stuff, but now it's all AI. Have you yourself ever been a contactee?
Not a contacting. No, I have
No.
seen craft, not in Switzerland. I've seen them here in the US. I've seen them in
Mhm.
Mexico, South America, but uh, but never a contactee that I'm aware of.
Okay. Okay. And how did Billy feel? As these things were happening, like you talk about, him being on the roof with your husband, and then all of a sudden he's beamed out. How did he feel during those times when he was just use beamed? You know,
Yeah.
when they beamed him out. I mean, did he feel something happening to his body while he was standing there, or was it just instantaneous?
He said it was absolutely instantaneous
Okay.
and that there was no feeling going on. Every now and then, when he was with them or when he was on the ship,
Mhm.
in my notes, I had was reading that he said that he got kind of an electrical charge, but it
Mhm.
was real quick and passing very fast.
Interesting.
Yeah,
Very interesting. I keep saying it because I just think this thing's so fascinating.
it
This
is.
case.
It's an
It's just
amazing
it's
case, but
amazing.
UFOs in general, once you start looking into one case, you're hooked. You're in
Right.
forever because there's so much to examine and so much that to be curious about.
Mhm.
Um, it's wonderful. It's really a good, I don't know, it makes you think. And I
Mhm.
love to be able to think and to prod and ideas and could it be this or that or the other? And to me, that I think is a very valuable thing that all of this brings to us so that we start thinking and start getting creative with
Mhm.
our consciousness and what we learn from it.
Absolutely. From all the stories that he told you, which one
Hmm.
sticks out the most to you?
Hmm. One that illustrates that he knew what was going to happen based on that ABC principle I was telling you about earlier.
Mhm.
We were in Switzerland. We were coming back from the airport. We heard that Anwar Sadat of Egypt had been assassinated. When we got, and that it was one man that killed him. And this was 1980, I believe, or
Mhm.
81. And when we got to the farmhouse, Billy said, no, the story's wrong. And he went and got this big volume of contact notes that he wrote down after each one of the contacts,
Mhm.
started going through it, found the one about Sadat, and he says he was killed in a military parade and there were many shooters. That wasn't released to the public until the following day. Yeah. So that one really stuck with me. Um, Billy, just being Billy, talking about the spiral universes
Mhm.
and how important they are because they're part of a progression, excuse me, of the spirit. What else? God, so many things.
It's just so fascinating. I like, especially when I was doing the googling and researching on it last night. There's just so much there. You know,
Mm-hmm.
and when you add in the photos and everything, there's just so much there. I don't see how people can come at this thing and say, no, he faked all this. He faked all this. I don't understand.
Yeah, I don't either, but it's okay. Maybe that's just the level they need to be at for the moment. You
Mhm.
know, it's
Mhm.
like people that don't believe in spirits. Hmm.
Right. Right.
They need to
Absolutely.
be there for the moment. They'll grow up eventually, I think. I hope.
With all the times that he's been contacted and taken,
Yeah.
was there ever any time where he would be with them, or was it just a thing where he was used to them and they were used to him?
Yeah, he was used to them. They were used to him. He was very aware of other civilizations.
Mhm.
Back in the 70s, there were 105, 108 different civilizations visiting Earth at that time.
Mhm.
But he was aware that they weren't all good.
Mhm.
Um, he spoke often about one called the Giza intelligence, that they had bases underneath the Giza pyramid, supposedly, and they were very controlling and very negative. He did not want any kind of association with that. He just wanted to learn. He wanted the positive input. He wanted to find out what he could to develop himself as a human and that he could share with others.
Mhm.
He's sort of given us a gift by all of the information he has provided, as well as the thump on it facts that
Mhm.
support his contacts.
Mhm.
Um, Now it's up to us what we want to do with it. And that's why we have the book and the documentary and all of that. It's not up to me to tell people to believe. They have
Right.
to find their own level.
Right.
And I can only present what we have done and say, take it from there, guys. Have fun.
Absolutely. Now, did he mention them telling him that the United States actually had built one of these ships, or had tried to?
He did not tell us that, no,
Okay.
but he knew that Hitler had tried to,
Mhm.
and others as well have tried to build disc shaped craft that could fly,
Mhm. Mhm.
but they don't have the interstellar capabilities.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, because what was it, World War II, or was it World War One, where I think it's World War II, where
Yeah.
the U.S. pilots were saying, or U.S. and British pilots were saying that they saw these craft.
Yeah. Well, we had Foo Fighters back in World War II. We
Mhm.
had the balls of energy that were chasing our fighters.
Mhm.
And then Hitler had actually built discs
Mhm.
and was trying to get those up and operational. Yeah,
Mhm. Which is why after the war we got some of their scientists to come over here,
absolutely.
to
Yeah.
work with us on these projects.
Yeah, because
And,
we had a missile program that was failing miserably. It was
mhm.
terrible.
Yeah.
And I know my dad worked on it, and they
Mhm.
would send them up and they'd turn around and come right back down. Yeah.
Wow. That sounds about right. Sounds about right.
Yeah. It took a while to get our legs. But look how far we've come in those years
Right.
to
Right.
where we are now. We're talking about going to Mars,
Mm-hmm.
but we have to get to a space because we are going to go into the universe where we can be respectful of what else is out there.
Now, at that point that we start going to Mars, because it's going to take years for the
Yeah.
astronauts to get to Mars and back. Do you think that's going to be a time with when these aliens jump in and go, no, 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 we can give you something that's going to get there faster?
I hope so. I hope so. I don't know that they would do that because
Mm-hmm.
we're kind of invading their turf.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it would depend on how much growth we've done as a planet, as a
Mm-hmm.
population of this planet, whether or not we're willing to leave our warring out of the equation.
Mm-hmm.
They might, and I think that would be wonderful if they did.
Well, you know, it's like with any other societies. I mean, the United States has good people. We have
Yeah,
bad people. The world has good people, bad people. It's the same thing with them. You know, when you talk about the different
exactly.
alien races, you're going to get a race like this group who's decent to us, but then
Uh
again,
huh.
there's these other groups that are out there that aren't so decent. You know, like you say,
Right.
the reptilians and all these other things. How do they keep everything in line? How do they now fight amongst themselves? All these different aliens. Did he mention that?
Um,
No.
I think they have kind of a council, is what
Okay.
I've read, is that they have a group that oversees them and keeps them from fighting. And if they're bringing negativity, they cannot be allowed here because we
Mhm.
have to develop on our own. If
Mhm.
they're trying to interfere with us some way, they shouldn't be allowed here. But I do think that people have a tendency to pick up on the vibrations of the
Right.
good and the bad energies out there, whether it's the physical energies of this planet or whether it's extraterrestrial energies,
Mhm.
spiritual energies.
Mhm.
And we have to learn to rely on what we're feeling um, through the heart, through the spirit, rather than with the mind. Because if we
Right.
think with the mind too much, we go a little nuts.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And the other thing I was thinking, like, them helping us, like you say, they're letting us develop on our own, and maybe
Yeah.
it'll come to a point where where we develop too much on our own, and that's where they have to step in and go, look, be careful here. And maybe all
Yeah.
these stories you hear, biblical, the rapture, and all this coming, maybe that's what it is. Maybe we get to a certain point in our development that that we're about to do something so horrendous that they
We
step
become
in and put a stop to
destructive.
it. Yeah.
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 Because if we, let's just say, we can't stop warring here, and we end up creating such a horrific scenario that we destroy this planet.
Mhm.
It's not just affecting us, it's
Mhm.
affecting everything through the universe. It's a ripple effect. It
Mhm.
carries that energy with it. And at that point, I think they would step in and say, no,
Mhm.
this has gone too far. You need to grow up.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And talking to him all these years, what's your best memory?
Um, hmm, wow. Riding through the forest in his Jeep at
Uh-huh.
night with the lights turned off, him driving with one arm,
Mhm.
shifting with his foot,
Wow.
and Lee and I wondering if we're going to get out of there alive because he didn't take a road. He was cutting through the forest and he never hit a tree. He said he was being guided. They were telling him where to go. And we
Mhm.
got to where we were going safely. Yeah,
Now,
that
as
was,
as a kid, when you talk about his mind, you're hearing these voices
uh-huh,
in his head.
yeah.
Was he having experiences before the first time that his father and he encountered?
Yeah, he did. He had contact with a being by the name of Svath that talked to him telepathically and came to him, and they did have conversations as a kid. Yes.
Mhm.
And they
Okay.
told him that he would be having contacts as he got older.
Okay. Okay. Very cool. Very cool.
This is typical with a lot of people that claim to have contact, both telepathic and the other
Mhm.
physical type, is that it starts as a child, and even abductions start
Mhm.
as a child and then carry on through life.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Does he remember them? I mean, obviously they knew where to find him. So, like you
Yeah.
say, it was more of a mental thing. But Do you think that they had put something inside of his arm or anything to be able to track him?
They recognized his frequencies, his vibrations.
Okay. Okay.
So, like each one of us has a vibration. And if you run into
Right.
somebody you really have an affinity with, you
Mhm.
feel comfortable with them. And if you run into somebody that you don't like, you back away from them.
Mhm.
They
Mhm.
knew him. They knew his energy.
Yes, energy. What did he like the most about them?
The fact that they were open and willing to discuss with him, and even silly questions about things that were happening at the farm. If he
Mhm.
asked them their opinion, they would give it.
Mhm.
He really liked that.
Mhm.
And he recognized them. He knew their energy too. Yeah.
Yeah. And let's talk about the farm a little bit. Did they understand that there were animals on this farm, or was that something totally new to them? Do you know?
Um, I don't know for sure. I know
Mhm.
that they weren't that interested in the animals. I know Billy talked to them because he was raising rabbits, and they
Mhm.
told him that that was one of their dietary staples was rabbits, something similar. Um, they had a dog there, they had chickens, they had a cow, but he also, he'd go out and plant potatoes and things like that. And he talked to them about what they ate, which was basically vegetables and rabbits. Very
Hmm.
similar to what we eat, but
Mhm.
different.
Mhm.
Very, you couldn't say a potato, it would be something very different.
What about their lifespans? Because I've interviewed people who have encounters like this. And some of these aliens live 4, 5, 600 of our years.
Yes,
Did he get any
sometimes
information about their
3,000.
lifespans?
Yeah, their lifespans are very different, but then
Mhm.
they've engineered things to a point too where it's much more pure than what we have here.
Mhm.
It's also something that time is not measured the same.
Mhm.
Time for us is a very linear thing,
Mhm.
midnight to noon, noon to midnight.
Mhm.
Their time is a little different because of the
Mhm.
rotation of their sun and all of that. So you have that to take into account too. But in general, as people develop, they live longer. And
Mhm.
now some of them are up to the 3,000 year space of life. I can't imagine living 3,000 years.
That's incredible. Absolutely
Yeah.
incredible. So what's next for you?
Um, I'm working on some other writing projects and doing that. And then we'll be getting the documentary out
Mhm.
the end of May. And so I'm really looking forward to that because it hasn't been seen. It was filmed in 82 and it takes you right back into the Meier case and the investigation as it was unfolding with a lot
Okay.
of science and a lot of good conversation.
Absolutely. And your book. Where can people get your book?
Um, Amazon, any bookstore, it's UFO Contact from the Pleiades. And if you have any questions or anything, or where you can get it, go to my website, britelders.com. And it's one T in Brit.
One last question, and I ask people this
Yeah.
all the time.
Okay.
You're standing on the strip in Las Vegas.
Yeah.
You got a little bookstore behind you
Yeah.
with your book in there. And there's other people that have had that wrote similar books to what you wrote. How do you get people to read your book?
Um, because I haven't seen a similar book to this. It's 10 inches by 10 inches square, and it's
Mhm.
full of four color photographs, great quotes, an outline of the science, and an outline of the case. I mean, it's a great big book
Mhm.
with beautiful pictures.
Okay,
It's a
awesome.
coffee table book. Yeah.
Okay, cool, cool. Thank you so much for coming on.
Oh,
I
thank
really
you,
appreciate it. I
Charlotte.
learned so much tonight. I appreciate it. We'll have to
Yeah,
get you back on
absolutely.
in the future. We'll have to bring you back.
I would love to do it and continued success with your show. I think
Thank you.
that's wonderful.
Thank you. I'm just watching the numbers and just, keeping my
There
fingers
you go.
crossed that things keep going in a positive direction. All right. Thank
I'll
you
do
so
what I
much.
can to help.
Thank you. And you have a great rest of your evening, okay?
You too. Thank you.
Okay. Thank
Good
you.
night.
Good night. Okay. Yeah, I always learn so much when I talk UFOs and contactees and this other stuff. I want to thank Jerry for being in the chat room. Kenny, thank you so much for coming. I really appreciate it. My good buddy Kenny. Tomorrow we will be back and we're going to be talking ghosts. and we're going to be talking about some nasty entities. Uh, Daryl Marston, and you probably heard the name before. He's on the new Ghost Hunter show, or was on the new Ghost Hunter show. He interesting experience in a former funeral home in Cleveland, Ohio, that he's going to share with us tomorrow. And I think it's worth a listen. He said, according to him, there were some dark beings in there that went home with him, and he really had what they call a son to come to Jesus uh, revelation as a ghost hunter. So he's going to be with us tomorrow, same time. Sorry, I'm kind of tired today. Same time, 6:30 p.m. Pacific, and yeah, so that's what's going to happen tomorrow. In the meantime, if you like the show, share it with 5 people. If you hated the show, share it with 5 of your enemies. We're equal opportunity here at California Haunts Radio, and we're just trying to get the word out. So the more you share it, the more the word gets out, and it's working. It's snowballing, and it's working, like I said in the beginning of the show. Okay? And again, sit tight, because when I do get the date for the Friday movie for Creature Features, I will be setting up a watch party, so we can all sit there and watch it together. All right. In the meantime, I will see you guys tomorrow, 6:30 p.m. Pacific. Have a great rest of your evening, everyone. And let me push my button. How I'm about my buttons. Here we go. Have a great evening, everybody.